We are live. Yet another LinkedIn live.
Hey Rajan.
Hey Prasanna. What's the thing with the specs today? Never seen you
Yeah,
wearing
just
specs.
getting older, so need to wear things for reading. I'm
Oh man.
assuming that we're not going to be reading a lot now. So.
Yeah. We won't be reading today in this conversation. All right. So looks like today this is an AMA. So folks that are signed in, please feel free to ask us questions. Anything that comes to your mind with respect to SaaS, building SaaS businesses, startup, product market fit. Anything that you like Prasanna or me to answer. So we'll focus on mostly the question that you're going to ask. But as the questions pour in, there are few elements that Prasanna, I think I can start with to kick off our discussion. All right, so folks, please feel free to put it on the comment section, and then it'll come to us, and I'll bring it up one by one. So Prasanna, the conversation is about accelerator. It's about SaaS. Um, let's flip this, right? Let's flip this from a perspective of what are some of the challenges that a first-time founder faces, and what are some of the things that a first-time founder feels is needed, but in experience, what do you think is that they actually need? I'm going to give you a hint that most of the founders think that they need to come up with an idea. That's the first thing, right? They get excited about looking at somebody else saying, "Oh, we did this well," and there is a Your Story article published about them or a Time magazine cover, and then you're like, "Oh, I also can imagine myself here." So that's where the desire starts. And today, being a founder is almost like if the last decade and the previous decade, the last decade was about cricketers, the previous decade to that was about Bollywood hero. This decade it definitely is about the heroes in our society is founders. So everybody wants to be a founder. And the first thing is an
Right.
idea. The second thing is going and getting funding. And I'm going to stop there. What's your thought on what do founders think they need and what do they actually need?
Right. I think very clear difference between first-time founders and second-time founders or third-time founders, serial founders on this. Right. I think first-time founders think that the idea is everything, and fall in love with that idea and then start doing things around it. First-time founders think that the name of the business is important. The website is important, and the brand is important. They put in so much effort into making a logo and
Logo,
putting up a nice website and all of those kind of things, right?
visiting
And
cards, and
yeah, exactly right. I mean, I don't know if first time founders still do visiting cards, but yeah, of course, visiting cards and so on, right? And I think the biggest difference that second time founders or serial entrepreneurs find is that literally the critical thing that most companies lack is paying customers, right? Especially from a B2B context. How do you get paying customers? Is this problem real? And is there somebody who will be ready to pay for it? Is seems to be a much more bigger risk for most startups than anything else. And so uh, most serial entrepreneurs I know start off with finding problems that are worth solving, rather than thinking that some idea is worth building. And so the way they do that then is to either collect prospects who are ready to pay, or customers who are ready to pay, or customers who are ready to work with you to build this out, or start doing this in a different model, maybe in a services model or something else, and prove to themselves that hey, this is a problem that if somebody solves, people will pay a lot for. And I think the contrast will help today. If you if you're building a drug for some kind of a cancer, you don't have to worry about selling it. You only have to worry about, okay, will it work? If it works, of course, you're going to be able to sell it, and people are going to buy it. Demand is not an issue. The channel is not an issue, right? But the same is not true for software, right? Because a lot of people start building software with some idea of some problem, and that problem may not be worth solving, because even if you solve it, which you may be able to do because you can do almost anything in software, you may find that people are not ready to pay for that particular thing because they have so much choice, right? I don't have to necessarily buy this, I can buy the other thing, and so on. You don't have so much choice in cancer drugs. Your doctor says take this drug and you take it. But if you're buying a CRM, you have, probably 1,000 different choices for what CRM to adopt based on who you are, and what you want to do, and what kind of marketing techniques you're using, and so on. Right? So within that gamut of choices, selling and building something that somebody is ready to buy is harder than building the thing itself.
Right. So you said, second time founders, they actually start with the problem statement and look for prospect. But this whole journey, which is the most important, phase of the, any successful startup is the 0 to 1 journey. Some people like to call this as, getting to product market fit. I know you said, they do something different, but even for repeat founders, it's a very hard journey, right? Even if
Yeah.
they have done this before. So what is, you and I are seeing that, a lot of our friends who built sold companies before, and now in 2023 are starting their second startup. Some have done some iterations, some are struggling. And one observation that we've made is that you may know that it is a slightly different starting point, but then the journey is still hard, right? So what is that part where even if you are like a second time founder, you may still struggle?
Yeah, so I think there was a study which said that the success rate for first time founders is about 16%. The success rate for second time founders is about 20%, and the success rate for the nth time founders is like 22%. Or like it taps out
Marginally.
at about 20, 22, 24%, right? So that's not a big difference in some ways, right? And here success was defined very, very it's a very, very low bar. It was like you got an exit of 1x, or at least as much as you raised, or at least you got paid, or something like that, right? There's some kind of an exit, right? Which is not a high bar. So uh, so the chances for the data on how much better a second time founder's success rate is not that promising, right? It's about 20% better chances, going from 16% to 20% or 22%. But at least what I've seen is that many times when founders are in the same domain, uh, one thing is identifying the problem, and then next is doing the GTM, all of those kind of things. So what happens is that if they're able to identify a problem, then they have the other pieces ready to take advantage of it, and that might explain the that 4% difference. But identifying that problem is a challenge, because the world is also changing, right? So if you knew something about a particular domain, and you worked in the domain for a long time, as a startup, and you did a bunch of things, so on and so forth, but the next time when you're starting up, the same mental models that you use for that market may no longer work the same way. Customers may no longer want the same thing, they may want something different, and so on and so forth. Right? So one person I like to make fun of at this point is like Kunal Shah, right? Because if you take his example, he did a coupons and cashback product for poor people, essentially, for people who are doing mobile recharges. And so you're doing 100 rupee mobile recharge. The take rate on that is some 0.5% or 1%, and then you're giving a cashback of I don't know how many paisa on that, and then the way you monetize that is by giving coupons, and somebody's paying you marketing charges for the coupons. And whatever, 4 years later or 6 years later, after he sold free charge and exited and stuff like that, he started Cred, which at first glance looked like a completely different business, but it ends up being exactly the same business, except you're doing it with rich people, right? So only the target market changed, but he's still doing cash back on payments. It's just credit card payments instead of phone recharge. Of course, your phone recharge is 100 rupees, and your credit card payment might be 10,000 rupees, or 1 lakh if it's international traveling kind of person. You're selling coupons to these people for, I don't know, McDonald's, and some kind of FMCG kind of stuff, which is 25 rupees, 50 rupees, or maybe e-commerce at that time. I think Mintra and Flipkart kind of coupons. and here you're selling coupons for travel packages worth 50,000 and 1 lakh and stuff like that. But it's exactly the same business, targeted towards a different demographic, with a different set of units. But otherwise, it's funny that
The
more or less
business
the
is
business
different.
model is same. And the other interesting thing is, at that time he didn't do lending, because I don't know how you would lend to these folks who don't have a lot of money. Maybe that was in the plan. They didn't get to it, and now lending has become a big component of the business. But you're lending to people who have very good credit scores and who are very rich. Therefore, that's a good business. Those are good people, hopefully, to lend to, because they have good credit scores. Right? But yeah, so that's how a lot of serial entrepreneurs get better at their second business, because they he figured out a different set of target customers
Segments.
for whom the same problems existed for a different set of units. But if you solve them, then you have a much bigger pie. And that's one of the reasons why credit is doing really well, because there are 25 million of those people, and credit is like really popular with many of them, right? So I think that works as an example. And another example is probably Cisco example. I mean, you probably know a bunch of people who've done Cisco spin in, spin out, whatever, right? So maybe you can share one of those stories that you know of, if you know in your.
Yeah, nothing that's coming on the top of mind, at least from an Indian context perspective. The Cisco spin out it usually is like, something that happens in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So there is there is this gentleman called Prem who's actually come out of Cisco and knew that Cisco couldn't solve this particular problem inside, so I'd come and bring the same team out and then build that company, and then John Chambers would acquire them again and again and again. Right? So that playbook, a lot of people in the valley, especially in core tech and infra company, have been able to repeat, because they know that
Exactly.
a problem needs to be solved in a large organization which will move very slow. It won't solve really well, and they come out solve. Then they know exactly who to go and sell that company directly to. It.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Exactly.
so that helps them improve the odds of a startup success a little better than if they were first time
Yeah.
founders. So just building on that, right? So the 0 to 1 journey for founders who are first time, there is a certain odd, let's say about 15-16%. If it is a repeat founder, there is a certain odd. But this product market fit or the 0 to 1 journey, what are SaaS specific things that we can talk about that can improve the odds, or does it, or even does it have a bearing on it? If somebody picks SaaS and they were taking this journey as opposed to saying, looking at it broader startup, and then saying, okay, that has a certain, or do you have any statistics on product market fit for SaaS companies?
Yeah. I think product market fit for SaaS companies is actually comes in many shapes and flavors and sizes, right? And that's one of the reasons why it's even hard for many founders to figure out, hey, what do I need to do to uh, get to product market fit? Or you look at somebody else's product market fit, and you think that, hey, my product market fit should look like that, but then your product market fit may actually not look like that.
Mm.
And so I think people get confused about which game they're playing and which landscape they're playing that game in. And I think the classic example is uh, when Whatfix was trying to raise capital in India. Up till then, the only model that got to product market fit globally from an Indian perspective was actually Freshworks, right? And so Freshworks had done it in a particular way, and their GTM looked like particular style. Their product looked in a particular way. The ACV was obviously in the $10,000 range. It was high velocity sales motion, outbound SMB, or I mean inbound plus SDRs, closing a deal in one call, $500 MRR to a couple of $1,000 MRR, closing those deals, upselling and stacking those things up. That's a very particular kind of a product market fit. Right? On the other hand, Whatfix, when they went to a lot of investors and so on, what people didn't realize is that what if Whatfix tried to play that their game like Freshworks, it would not work. because in Whatfix case, product market fit required a lot of education of customers. There were not enough customers who understood the value that Whatfix could bring to them and Whatfix could create for them, and therefore that education had to be a part of the sale, and that meant that the sale can't be, one inbound call with one SDR once, and you're done and you can sell this product. And if you sell this product for, say, the same price that what Freshworks did for $5,000 or $10,000, it would not even work because it required a lot of integration, a lot of change management on the customer side. And of course, the ICP would not work. The SMB, mid-market ICP would not work. This had to be real enterprise. And therefore, the change management and stuff like that was very hairy, took a long time. Now, imagine if Kadam had, not continued with Whatfix because he felt like, hey, you know what, I cannot achieve product market fit like Girish has, right? Then it would have been a shame. But that was the path that people were urging them on. And Kadim and Vara stuck to their stand saying, no, this is different. We can't play the same game. And our product market fit is going to look different. We are going to be selling to very large enterprises. We have to sell with partners. We can't sell it alone. We have to go for deep integrations. We have to pick a very, very specific niche. And that niche itself will be very, very large. And we can't pick a horizontal, like a wide kind of a space and just like go all out and so on and so forth, right? And in hindsight today, that's worked out. And so their product market fit looks very, very different from a Freshworks product market fit. And a ChargeBee's product market fit looks very, very different than a Whatfix product market fit. And so founders many times are using the wrong benchmark to see where they are and where they should be going, rather than figuring out, hey, where am I playing and where are my customers with respect to this problem, and what will it take for that problem to get solved? Are these the right problems, and so on, right? So I think the first step towards what you're saying is knowing that your product market fit may not, who your product market may look like and who it may not look like. And that I think is a critical first step. But what do you think? How do you think?
I was gonna say that brings me to our favorite keyword that both of us have strong views on, called the playbook, right? So most of the people like to think about saying, oh, there is a playbook, and then they say that the playbook for product market fit is just to do high velocity sale. The playbook to product market is just work in existing category, right? And that is where things break down the way you explain through the ChargeBee, Whatfix, and in Freshworks approach of them going from the 0 to 1 journey. The way I like to express this is to say that the 0 to 1 journey is like escaping the Bermuda Triangle. For every direction that is going to be right, there is an equal and an opposite direction that is also going to work, which is why I don't have I would rather frame it like this, right? I have a distaste towards the word playbook, because you cannot copy playbooks, and like how you explained, you have to understand the context of the business that you're running. You have to go a little bit more deeper than to say, hey, I'm just going to blindly copy paste. Look, you can copy paste copywriting from a competitor of doing some analysis and then say, oh, I'm going to copy paste the spelling mistakes because if they've done through some thinking through, and therefore that particular copy paste is working, right? But even there you'll have to exercise some caution, right? But when you're working a lot more fundamentally and trying to escape that 0 to 1 phase where the default state is for things to not work for you, so it'll look like a lot of struggle, but in trying to get out of the struggle, the human mind's tendency is to say, hey, let me just look at some other guy who has done it in the past, and if we only ape him, right, if we only follow his playbook, then maybe I will also
Absolutely.
get out, right? And more often than not, it doesn't work that way, right? So it is rare to say that, hey, this was a playbook that I followed the playbook and therefore this worked for me. And in most cases, the 0 to 1 journey for every individual is very, very contextual, very person dependent. And in that product market fit, the first thing, and this is what actually makes things very different for everybody, right? When the product market fit, the first step is founder market fit, right? So if you are that Cisco engineer and you are trying to build an e-commerce company, then you are not going to have any specific unique advantage, right? over, let's say, somebody else who comes from e-commerce or comes from retail is actually trying to build a business around that. So that founder market fit becomes the first step, and that founder market fit is then translated into domain. Then you understand the domain a little better and understand how does that domain, people in that domain, how do they make purchase decision, and how you actually are going to map yourself to that. When that changes, then whatever, playbooks that worked somewhere else, it may not translate, right? So playbook is a word that I absolutely, like I said, prefer not to use. And there is no playbook as such to go from the 0 to 1 journey or product market fit. But of course, like how you said, right, the first time founders, beyond the first time founders, or sometimes in the case of B2B founders, there are some steps that you can take which makes it easier. Like, if you make sure that you have identified a high value problem and you are very convinced about it, that this is a high value problem that you're solving, and you have a good understanding of where do these people hang out, what are they doing, what are they reading, how do they make purchase decisions, who do they listen to, who do they not listen to. And if you have that understanding, then you can chart out your go to market approaches. And using this, you will have to take your path, right? And this, combined with, like how you said, in terms of, oh, this may have happened 10 years ago, but if I'm a repeat founder, even if I understood the domain, but if the purchase process has changed now, then as a repeat founder, I have to understand what that new buying pattern and behavior is. And based on that, I have to go ahead and do it. So I'd like to say that there are no playbooks for product market fit. But as you build better muscle as second time founder, you can avoid more mistakes that a first time founder makes. But you will have to go through the journey of the product market fit again, and and that is what unnerves a lot of founders, right? They've gone through that
Yeah,
journey once, they're like, man, I'm going to still again face a lot of uncertainty.
correct. Yeah, absolutely. I think not being able to uh, deal with that prolonged uncertainty, right? Uh, that is a killer. That is a very very difficult phase if you're starting from scratch.
So why do founders see the founders who are going it for the first time? They probably don't understand. They are traversing the maze. They expected it to be like a straight line, like how you do school and exams. They're like, okay, I studied the chapters, I understood the concepts, I gave it exam, and then I got grade. But dealing with startup is like solving a maze, or more like a Rubik cube, right? And I have to go through a lot of twist and turn. You have to do a lot of backtracking. The first time founders, they don't understand, and part of their journey is actually first recognizing that this is solving a maze. Like it's like going into a Jumanji movie, right? But second time founders, they know that it is a maze, and they know that there are mistakes that they can avoid. But why do they do it again when it is so uncertain?
Yeah, I think the psychology of that question is something to be thought through, right? And I think starting up and doing this, and you realize all the mistakes that you made, and many people, many founders, definitely there are founders who start off with perfections, who think that next time around I can avoid those mistakes, I can do it faster, I can do it quicker, I can do it better, and that becomes a this thing, right? I mean, in that context, right, people, I mean, researchers found that women very quickly forget how much pain they were in when carrying a child, and otherwise they would not have another child, right? So humans are hardwired to forget the bad things that happen, and only remember the good things. And so founders forget all those nights of terror and uncertainty and so on, because evolution wants you to forget that stuff so that you can keep exploring on the fringes of whatever it is to create something new, right? Whether it's a child or a startup. So I
Oh,
think
that's a fantastic comparison, right? Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
as humans, we forget all the bad things, or I mean, we forgot that we had COVID, and then now we're planning what's going to
yeah.
happen in the next 10 years, 15 years. We're more optimistic that way, right? So you're right. I mean, it's a great comparison.
It's not optimism. It's actually forgetting the pain. Right, both are
It's
different.
forgetting the pain,
It's forgetting the
but
pain.
remembering the good parts, right? Yeah,
Remembering the
maybe
good
it's a
parts.
different,
Right?
maybe it's a different word. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, so I often see founders who are going through this maze. They come and then say they've heard some playbook, They look at it and then said, oh, this was the, like, guiding light that I was looking for. And then they hear another framework, and then they realize that, the backtracking that they had to do, it was all wrong. And then they go and curse themselves, saying that, I was so wrong about it. And
Yeah,
like, now I think, I'm right about it now.
this framework
Then
is right.
this framework is right. And then 3 months later, they again repeat it. What would you say to that?
Yeah. So I think this is a problem, especially in India. I don't know how much of a problem this is in the US, but this is definitely a problem in India because we are taught to follow rules. We are taught to not question authority. We are taught to have answers for things without even realizing whether the questions are right. And so we are looking for solutions, right? And we're not looking for hey, why did it not work last time? And of course, trying to analyze why something did not work last time is very hard. It's a very hard thing to do, right? Because it might end up that hey, I made a mistake, right? It's my fault. I didn't do these things correctly, or I took the wrong advice, or I didn't put enough effort, or whatever it is, right? So those things are much harder to face. It's much easier to say this time this framework is going to work than any of that introspection or retrospectives and stuff like that, right? And I think that need for answers drives people from one framework to another, or one playbook to another, without like questioning, where am I, who am I, why should I be the one doing this, should I be the one doing this, maybe it's not the right thing for me, right? And I think yesterday I was talking to some founders, and in one of the interviews for the new cohort, and I think they had a moment of clarity, and they said, look, this kind of business is not the kind of business that I can build. This other kind of business is something that I can build, but this one, it's not for me, right? And so when people have that clarity of, this is right for me, this is not right for me, this one I can do, this one I can't do, I think that is very critical. But that's really hard. It's much easier to go and browse and find one more talk and one more playbook and one more guru, and say, we're going to listen to what this person says now, jump into that and just put your whole effort into that, do all your homework, get all the good grades for doing that homework, but you have not even moved an inch with respect to the outcome that you need, right? Because whether it's this or that or the other, you have to apply it, and applying it in your context is very different from doing the homework that somebody else gives you.
Oh, that brings me to an interesting question that I meant to ask. We're going through the interview cycle for the current cohort, and you talked about, like, a misconception that founders had, and, like, they had some clarity. What are some common misconceptions that you're seeing in the current set of founders that are coming and talking to us?
uh, I think very often, people come with, when they maybe just a few things are working, and they come and they think that their only problem is GTM. I think very too quickly, too often, many founders conclude that
Their
all
product
their
market fit.
problem is GTM, and I
Yeah,
don't
they
have
have
enough
already.
leads.
Yeah.
Right? If I just had enough leads, then everything would be fine. I understand everything else. My pricing is great. My positioning is great. My product is great. I just need enough leads. Can you help me get more leads? Right? And I think that misdiagnosis of what is really preventing you from getting leads, and people just telling them, look, do more sales, do more marketing, and you will get more leads. I think that's the biggest misconception that I see. You know, and it's been true for forever, from when I was in Microsoft Accelerator.
Right. Most people overestimate, and they feel that they already have the product market fit, and,
Yeah,
like, and they hear the popular saying that sales fixes all problems, and they're like,
correct.
all I need to do is the sales, and so give me leads, right? So that overestimation of product market fit. You said that it seems to be the same across many years that you've seen. I mean, almost like a decade. what has changed? Like, what has changed from, like, Indian founders building SaaS businesses from a global perspective, or like Indian founders building a startup, right, into 2023 compared to 2014?
I think we have a lot more product management expertise, whether it's a product manager starting up or somebody who's worked with product managers and therefore, actually knows what product managers do and what they bring to the table and how they do things and so on. Right. I think that would be one of the biggest changes. Right? And I think a lot more founders now have worked in SaaS companies before, different things maybe, but worked in SaaS companies before, and therefore have a much better understanding of at least some parts, the parts that maybe they worked in customer support, maybe they worked in product, maybe they worked in tech, maybe they worked in whatever, but they understand like what drives the SaaS business, right? More generally, which was not the case a few years ago. I was talking to a friend who was a in not exactly product, but something allied to product in Freshworks, and they'd been there for like 4 or 5 years, and they were leaving, and they asked me like, what should I do next? I'm just going to, I know everything in SaaS, right? That was kind of the feeling that the person had, because they'd worked in Freshworks during the period when they went from, I don't know, 5 million or 10 million or whatever to close
All
to
the way to the IPO.
50, 100 million, whatever, right? And so they felt like they knew everything in SaaS, right? So then I had a conversation and I was like, do you understand that like, Freshworks has a great view of SMB, of horizontal SaaS, but there are many types of SaaS. And if you end up building a business which is not horizontal, not SMB, this thing, then the lessons from Freshworks may not apply to the business you're building. And so this person then went into a large enterprise, exact opposite, like large enterprise, new category, new geography, SaaS product, became a principal product manager, led a team and so on, and then realized like after 3-4 years, like how vastly different these two things are, and how little actually works
Overlap there
across
is.
these two things. Right? uh, but now that person now has exposure to two things, and once you have exposure to two things, then you can kind of extrapolate that there are going to be many more other local pockets of optimize that for different things. And so therefore they are able to now recognize, oh, this one is like this, that one is like that, this one is different this way, and so on. Okay? So that depth of understanding of different things in SaaS is something that is now true in 2023. In Upekkha, we have a founder who sold their first SaaS company to an e-commerce major, then built a B2B, B2C company, which went kind of okay. Then built another B2B company, not SaaS, didn't do that well, but got some exit. And now is building a B2B SaaS company again, and has joined Upekkha because they understood now that, hey, you know what, that does not work the same way here. This does not work the same way there, and therefore I need something that will help me have a bigger picture, have a larger understanding of the playing field, right? So people are reflecting on what they know, and they're also able to see many more examples around them, and all those examples are different, to realize that what they're missing. What do you think? What do you see as a difference between founders in 2014 and 2023?
So 2014, anybody building SaaS was looked as the nuts, right? It took some time, like, in 2011 when Girish had started, and I mean, a few years later, Krish had started. At that particular point in time, all that the startup ecosystem was talking about, hey, can you tell me another Flipkart of this and Flipkart of that? And I remember when we were initially putting together the SaaSX, right? 2014. I mean, it was hard to get 70 people in a room,
Yeah.
right? That is across the country, like, who has
I
anything.
bought a bus from Bangalore.
Bangalore to Chennai, right? So that was like, that was the like, situation of SaaS, at least like, 10 years ago. The startups had taken off, like, the e-commerce and all had become pretty popular. Pretty much, like, a huge amount of funding had come in. had poured in. I think SoftBank had entered India that particular year. So the startup boom had happened, but SaaS did not. And SaaS did not happen, I would say, till 2018, 2019, even 2020. Right. So back then, SaaS almost felt like, okay, it's something that most people don't understand. Today the situation is I feel that practically anybody that wants to build a startup is actually considering a SaaS startup. And one difference between a, let's say, a B2C startup and a SaaS startup is in a B2C startup you are a default dead till you make yourself a default alive company, terms that Paul Graham talks about, which is like if you are not yet in the product market fit space, that you have to prove every day that you can get there. But in B2B, you have to actually do really really stupid mistakes not to be default alive, right? So that is something that people are realizing, and therefore people are looking at saying, hey, I want to actually start out a SaaS company. Plus funding is adequately available. Last year, even though it has come down this year, but last year, in the first quarter of last year, $1 billion of funding went into all kind of SaaS companies together. And though the total funding is very very high, it's still it's a percentage of that. As a function of this, the number of SaaS companies are really very high. Not only in India, but even in the US, the number of SaaS companies is very very high. In 2014, there used to be mention of saying that there are 100 million ARR clubs. Today we are talking about decacorn clubs, as in people who are more than billion ARR clubs, right? So back then it was small. So what it means for founders is competition has increased a lot. Earlier, if you identified a particular use case and you solved it really well, you did decent amount of work on SEO and some amount of content marketing, you would start getting some results. Even though investors were not understanding it here in India, but you will start getting some result. It'll start adding up revenue. But now the channels, the attention, they are all getting bombarded by multiple companies that are getting created. So the difference that I see from a 2014 to 2023 is that now to get traction, it is that much more hard because the competition is really, really high. So not only do you have to actually work on identifying a good problem value, you want to work on identifying good go to market, find channels which are going to make it affordable for you to implement your go to market. But you also have to stand out and win amongst the competition. See, it is a given that there is no winner takes all in B2B SaaS, but because there is so much additional competition, you have to actually build great brand. It has to come from you building phenomenal product experience, phenomenal customer experience and support, and also doing a great job of product marketing so that you're well positioned, well understood, and customers really love you and recall you really well. So the big change in 2023 that I would say is the rising importance of you building a great brand in addition to building a great product to win in the market because of added amount of competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the market has changed. The awareness of people has changed. People, the way people buy software has changed. Platforms like G2 have created a massive difference in terms of how people find software and buy software, compare software. All of these things have changed, right? So buying SaaS is no longer as challenging as it used to be. Landing and expanding is now pretty common, and despite whatever is happening from a post-COVID mild uh, slowdown, recession, whatever you call it, from a SaaS tech perspective, spend on software is still increasing year on year. Spend on SaaS is still increasing year on year. I think one thing that is in addition to what you said is probably vertical software.
Yeah, vertical
The number
SaaS
of verticals which have
that has exploded.
specialized software for them is huge, right? And so when somebody who's in a vertical of some kind are looking at uh, what they should buy, then today there's a lot of content for them, there's a lot of marketing that's aimed at them to figure out which product they should buy and which why and so on and so forth. educating them on what to do, right? Which was not there.
Yeah. So, Prasanna, this is an AMA on the topic of Accelerator Program. And before we wrap up, I think it would be important that we talk about just that aspect as well. In your words, like what can founders expect when they join Upekkha Accelerator?
So I think uh, when when founders join an accelerator which is only for B2B, only for SaaS, like Upekkha, what they get is set of frameworks which other founders who have only done B2B and only done SaaS have used. And therefore, they get a language to use. Of course, each founder's problems are different from somebody else's problems. But at least we start getting a common language to speak about these problems with each other. And once that common language is there, then they will discover that there's a community of 200 plus founders who have all been through similar problems. It's not the same problem, but similar problems, and who are maybe 3 months ahead of them, 6 months ahead of them, a year ahead of them, few years ahead of them. And because of this common language, they're able to learn from these folks much better than they would be able to learn from somebody else. And when they start applying these things in a very, very trusted community, they can get feedback as well. They might be able to find early customers as well. And many of our startups get customers from other startups, uh, sharing their customers and their leads. I think these are things that founders can expect. And of course, once they've created something that is valuable in terms of, hey, I found some problem that is really worth solving, and I've solved it, I've proven it with a few customers, and so on and so forth. We help them connect to downstream investors who would be able to fuel the next part of their journey as well. Right? And of course, the community support is there on an ongoing basis. It's a lifetime membership in our community. So, um, you know, learning a SaaS language that helps you diagnose your problems and get help from others. Community which actually speaks the same language and has gone through the same problems uh, in the past, and access to a network of stakeholders, advisors, and investors who can help you on the next leg of your journey.
So I think summed it really well. Before we wrap up, any last few thoughts you want to share?
So I think it's a great time to start a SaaS business. I think folks who have domain expertise, folks who understand problems that uh, real people, real businesses have today, the problems of today. If you know how to, if you know what problems are worth solving and that people will pay for, I think it's a fantastic time to start a SaaS business. It was hard a couple of years ago to start because you would have to pay a lot for developers or engineers. It was, of course, easier to raise capital, but on the flip side, the expectations for you after you raise capital were sky high. But today, if you are solving real problems, yeah, and you can actually get customers to pay you today, then you have very, very strong validation that what you're building is really, really valuable. And of course, there is still a lot of capital on the sidelines, which people will, which investors will deploy for a good combination of a founder and startup. So founders should not think about this as a bad time. It's actually a good time because you can hire more easily, more cheaply. Uh, you will not be entertained by customers for problems which are not real today. You will find it hard to get paid by customers today, but that's a good thing because then you're going to only solve really important problems, right? So I think it's a great time to start a SaaS business today.
Yeah, so what you're saying is a great time to start a SaaS business. I totally second that. So with that, Prasanna, let's wrap it up for now. Folks, thanks for signing in to this LinkedIn Live, and we'll meet you in another future one. Bye for now.
Bye, folks.
Bye.